Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, integrative medicine physician. The purpose of this show is to teach you the same framework I've used to help heal myself and hundreds of others. We'll cover lifestyle health habits, meditation, and mindset topics to unlock your potential for optimal living and thriving. Welcome. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, and today my special guest is Ben Albert. Ben is the owner of Balbert Marketing. He is also the curator of the Real Business Connections Network, where he hosts 5 podcasts. Once an underdog, now a successful entrepreneur, Ben is passionate about helping other underdogs achieve their dreams. Ben is on a mission to actually move the needle 1 million lives, one conversation at a time. So welcome, Ben.
I'm excited to be here. I know from behind the scenes the amount of time and effort and love you put into this show. So I just really appreciate you spending some of that time with me and everything you do to create such an amazing podcast here, Gayle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. I am excited to talk to you today. Your story is fascinating. Tell us about your journey through the pandemic and how you emerged and where you are now.
Yeah, I guess you could say I was an accidental entrepreneur. No Jeff Bezos or Brene Brown or Oprah on my wall. When I was a kid, I really just wanted to be the next Michael Jordan. I wanted to be a basketball player, but accidental entrepreneur because I was an executive in a marketing firm and the pandemic hit. I was new to that role. So, last one in, first one out, I got furloughed. And the, clickbait is in just under a year, just over a year, really. I completely replaced my sales executive income as an entrepreneur, but it wasn't pretty. And as you know, like everything that happens in our life is preparing us for the person we get to become. And I was just called to do something new. And I guess people say you're not lucky, Ben. You're just hardworking. I genuinely think I might be the luckiest man in the world because it worked out for me.
It did, but you did put a lot of hard work into it.
Yeah.
So tell us about that piece where once you found out that you did not have a job, we're in the pandemic, what did you do?
I did all the right things and all the wrong things simultaneously. When I was a kid, I mentioned I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be the next Michael Jordan, and I was watching Vince Carter, Toronto Raptors, and dreaming of one day being, an athlete. But the humor in it was I was literally the smallest boy in the entire school. I was the second smallest person behind a little girl named Olivia Lee. So I might have had a skill set, but I kind of got pushed around a lot. I got bullied a lot. And behind the scenes, my mom had a neurological disorder, multiple sclerosis, and my father had really just an alcohol and drug abuse problem. He ended up passing away because of his addictions. And I was a small kid and I learned how to make myself smaller. So like I was hunched over, I would hide, I had crazy public speaking fear. The fact I'm speaking on this podcast is mind blowing to me. And most of my life I did play small. And it wasn't until my later years going into college that I started to read some of this personal growth, and I got into meditation, and I got into, affirmations and visualization and exercise and reading and writing and gratitude and drinking enough water and all the basics. And over a long period of time, I did feel like I was starting to kind of reprogram my brain by reprogramming my habits. But you asked what I did when I got furloughed. It was all the best things and all the worst things simultaneously, because I had been doing these rituals for like 10 years. And never, I was unemployed. So never had I went hiking more, time in nature, time out reading, just on the beach, just listening to the water. It was, we couldn't do anything because of the pandemic. So I got outside, but simultaneously looking at my past, never have I drank more alcohol, and never had I been just more disconnected and unsure of what was going to happen next. So it was kind of like I knew where the North Star was, or at least I had like an idea of it, but I was running backwards while I looked at it. So I was had the positive behaviors, but then I had all these coping and negative behaviors. And one big thing I learned was I didn't have to add anything more, Gail. It was actually starting to subtract the negative stuff in my life,
Mm.
that all the good stuff actually started to come to the surface because I was meditating and I had all these good habits for a very long time, but I wasn't getting the full benefit because of these coping disastrous behaviors I had simultaneously. So all of that to say, I'm still a work in progress, and the pandemic by now was like 3-4 years ago. It Wow. I haven't even really thought about that. That was a while
I
ago.
know.
And I've gotten so much better and grown so much in the past 2, 3, 4 years. But yeah, it was only a few years ago. Like, we're still climbing the mountain as we go.
Yes, yes. And the pandemic brought that up for all of us, really. I mean, it made us stop and reevaluate kind of everything about our lives
Yeah.
and look at where we were head on. And most people in that fear and trauma of the pandemic did do coping mechanisms that were not healthy. And so you were amongst the crowd, let's say, and but you found your way out and you started. Where did you start to shift your? I mean, yes, you had this. Um, you had your toolbox of the positive habits, lifestyle,
Yeah.
health habits that were going to really help you move forward as your best self. But what did it, how did you take that step that put you on the path to now running this business and helping millions of people?
Yeah, it's very nuanced, and personal growth, business growth. We could do 10 hours on any little piece of the nuance of these topics, but honestly, I was doing affirmations every morning, and this wasn't the first time and wasn't the last time, but I'm looking myself in the mirror saying things like, you're good enough now and you're only getting better. You're an open channel for creative ideas. You act as if you already have what you want. I'm saying these things, but I'm bloodshot, I'm tired, and I didn't believe myself.
Mm,
I knew intuitively that my actions were misaligned with the stuff that I was saying in the mirror. And I honestly started to dislike who I was becoming.
mm,
So it's very nuanced, but I started to dislike the man that I was becoming and who I was going to become. So I said, who do I want to become? Like, I want to be happy and healthy. I want to impact people. I want to create a legacy. I want people to be happy that they met me. I want to have a positive difference in this world. And I can't do any of that
right.
if I'm destroying myself. So it's so classic. It's so like traditional AA. It's the simplest advice in the book. It was one day at a time.
Mm,
Like, recently, I hired a personal trainer, but it started with just doing a couple push ups when I woke up in the morning. And it
mhm,
started with, I didn't originally just stop drinking, but then I kind of weaned off it, and then I took 6 months entirely off. And this is a whole different story, and people would argue this is a problem. I'll have a glass of wine here or there, but I'm not binge drinking, and I'm not doing it out of this sad place. I'm doing it at dinner for a celebration. So I got rid of a lot of the bad stuff, and one day at a time just started to integrate better things.
mhm,
And that was in my personal life. And in my business life, it was jumping on networking calls daily. It was starting a podcast. It was taking notes from the podcast and implementing and integrating what I learned. It was posting daily. It was trying to be better every single day. And I was a hot mess behind the scenes, but I think people maybe saw a little twinkle in my eye that maybe I could possibly go somewhere.
Mhm.
And I did. And it was, again, just one day at a time, one habit at a time, one lucky meeting the right person at the right time, but being open to meeting that person, going and shaking that hand. I didn't shake many hands at the start of the pandemic, but
Right,
you know what
right.
I'm saying.
You could do the virtual handshake. Yeah,
Exactly.
everybody's safe here. So, exactly. That's exactly how it works. It's one day at a time, one step at a time, and one habit incrementally, like 1% better every day. Before you know it, you're a lot better.
Yeah.
And that we talked about this before we started recording about how connection is so important as humans. We need to be connected to ourselves. We need to be connected with each other. And so when you started your podcast, during the pandemic, we were all disconnected. And so that's where Zoom, became really our connection space, and or FaceTime, or just being on the phone or texting or just being able to connect any way we could.
Yeah.
And but you found another way to connect. And then you started expanding that connection to the point where you took one podcast and now it's five. So tell us,
Yeah.
how did you get from one to five?
Well, the wild journey. And speaking of connection, I came from a marketing and sales background, and this was very like deliberate. I had set up a LinkedIn. I actually didn't know that I was going to do entrepreneurial things exactly yet. Like I, I was applying for jobs. I didn't know what my next move was, but I realized that a friend request on LinkedIn was called a connection request.
Mm,
And I had a Rochester music podcast at the time. Music industry was shut down. I was unemployed, non-essential. So I'm like, let's try a Rochester business podcast, and we'll call it Rochester Business Connections, because a connection request is what a friend request is on LinkedIn. And then let's get on LinkedIn and we'll reach out. I went to State University, New York, Brockport. So let's reach out to SUNY Brockport alumni who are business owners and highlight business owners from Rochester. It was incredibly tactical. Even the word connection was tactical. I needed some. So I started a
oh,
connection show to get some. To jump, and I'm skipping a lot, but to jump way forward, I got into it thinking that I needed business connections, which I did. That's how I started building my business. But it was the actual meaning behind the word of connection is what I got.
mm,
Went in thinking I needed to network and get referrals, but I got FaceTime with brilliant people that became mentors.
mm.
I got tips that I maybe never would have learned unless I went deep into a dive of buying a course, or who knows. Like, I got to spend 60 minutes with a brilliant person and shared their life lessons. I made friends that now that things are opened up, way past COVID, I see them all the time. We go to events, we grab a beer
Oh,
here and then. It's like I went in thinking I needed business connections, which wasn't wrong. Like, I wanted to maybe start a business, but it was the real life connection. It was the relationships that I earned that I found was actually the most that was the true award. And
mm,
that's what keeps me going, even if I don't have millions of listeners. And why five different segments? Well, I mentioned I started with Rochester, New York. And maybe Ben got a little drunk with power, but I wanted to reach more people. And I was learning, learning, learning. And now that I had a platform that was established, I had the opportunity to reach out to some of these mentors that I was learning from. So I launched a international segment. I
mm,
have a segment called Ben's Bites that's just me. I have a segment where it's panel discussions. I have a segment where it's 15-minute Friday. I like long form conversation. 15-minute Friday is more of those actionable, quick business tips. So, why so many segments? One, because I'm a little ADHD and I love to try different things. But two, I want to impact the audience in the best way possible. And if I diversify the content I create, maybe someone doesn't want to listen to my conversations with Rochester business owners. That's okay.
Mhm.
They're not from Rochester. Maybe they want to get the 15-minute Friday. So that's kind of how slowly I started to integrate different styles. And it's worked well for me. It's a ton of fun. It keeps it interesting.
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant because people don't, when we first started when I first started, which wasn't that long ago, the podcast episode was supposed to be long, right? Or 30, 45 minutes. And now it's bites, right? Or shorter, much shorter segments. And if in my earlier episodes, for example, I did an episode on the trifecta of sleep, hydration, and movement. And
Mm,
I could do a podcast on each scene, each one, but I put it together for the audience so they would start to see that how everything is integrated in our bodies, in our lives, and how it all works together. So it's not separate. And that's basically now, like, this next episode is going to be just on hydration because it's really hot out there. And now I know about the heat index that I didn't know about 2 years ago. And so it's all those things that it grows, we grow, and it changes too. So you have this really amazing ability in connecting with people to connect in a way that really serves them, right? So you've got enough of the variation in your different podcasts and so many different people. That's
yeah.
the brilliance to me. And what I love about it is the connection. It's the human relationship that really changed everything because when it comes down to it, maybe, I don't know, in the past, it seemed that business connections were not the kind of connections we have now. Now it truly is like a human to human connection.
To riff on that, I think it's like a beautiful, wild, amazing thing that's happening because I wasn't born way back in the day, but like there was a milkman that would come to your house and like conversation, like what people had a freaking phone that they had to stand by in the kitchen. Like I remember that. I'm not that young, but it's like we used to be far more relationship driven. And with the invent of technology, I think there's a lot of fakeness online.
Mhm.
There's a lot of facades, and a lot of people feel disconnected. Like I was shook up this morning coming into this podcast. I won't give all the details, but a good friend of mine, his buddy's son, who's 18, committed suicide last
Oh.
month. And never in our documented history has this been a bigger problem. People are really, really hurting.
Mhm.
And with the internet and technology, it's never been easier to connect, but we've never felt more disconnected. And I think a beautiful silver lining in this is people that are relationship driven, people that are client focused, people that truly care, that show up and are present for others, they're going to do great in business.
Mhm.
All the technology is not going to make that. The technology is a tool, but connection's never been more important. And if you can learn those skills, and a lot of them aren't even skills, it's literally just being present with a human being and being aware of what's going on and just holding space for them. If we can do that, we're going to be successful in business and successful in life and relationships, in my opinion, at least, Gail.
I agree. I agree because, my line that I always, not just line, but what I truly believe as a key take home for all of us is that we're spiritual beings having a human adventure to learn, to grow, to gain wisdom, and to share our gifts with the world. And it is an adventure, that's for sure. Um, but when it comes down to it, we all are connected, even though, like, the pandemic made us feel disconnected.
Yeah.
but we never really were. We just had to have another way to connect, and it helped. To me, in many ways, what it did was it helped us to refocus on ourselves because it made us look at ourselves, right? We couldn't go anywhere, or if we did, it wasn't very far, and
Mm.
we had to regroup because everything was different. And I wrote a uh, a blog post early on about resilience because I am so fascinated by the human, indomitable human spirit and resilience. Because when you tune into that part of you like you did, that was the affirmative, the positive, the growth set, the possibilities instead of all the limitations, you're unstoppable. And so when we are focused on that, then the connection that we have with ourselves, we can expand that to others. And in that article, I said, when we emerge from the pandemic, we'll be so happy to be together and be
Hmm.
with each other in a new way because we will have connected with ourselves.
I have so many thoughts rambling. The first thing that came to mind is there's two kind of viruses, the
Mm.
coronavirus and then the possibility virus.
Oh,
And the
nice.
possibility virus had never been stronger. The other thing that came to mind was, oh my God, so many things. You've got, where can I get this article?
That one's on Medium, actually. It was one of the few that I wrote on Medium.
Wow.
What happened in the pandemic? I went into lockdown a week before it was official because I knew as a physician, like this is a virus, it's spreading, and what happened in China is not going to stay in China. So I closed down early and immediately got a telehealth account, which had never been heard of, especially in
Mm.
Vermont. And um, during that time, I went into prayer and I said, God, how can I serve? How can I help? And the answer came, write and teach. Okay, here goes. So that's one of my earliest articles in Medium. So that's where you'll find it.
I love that. I've been known to say our biggest expense in life is lack of the right knowledge and information.
Mhm.
And that's sometimes access, but now there's access, and now it's who do we trust? It's getting the right information from the right mentors.
Yes.
So that's so valuable.
Oh, that's great. I know that was a big surprise to me too. How many people were online and how much information's out there. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Not
I have, I,
necessarily.
I know we're on a huge tangent, but my one general rule is I only learn from people that have accomplished what I'm trying to accomplish in that area.
Mm.
Because a lot of people talk a big game.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to hire someone, I want them to literally have done what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a trusted source, and you need to vet and make sure that they have. And there are some scenarios that you don't have to be on drugs to help someone who's on drugs. But in my case, I think I'd probably hire someone who had been through it themselves. I
Mm.
don't know, I'm on a tangent, but I always look for people that have that experiential knowledge as well.
I learned that the hard way about business because I didn't know anything about online. I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about websites, and I met and hired people who talked a good talk, but they didn't have the experience needed to really deliver. So that's a really good that's a reminder. So ask. So as you went through and you started expanding your network, um, what wisdom have you gained along the way that you'd like to share?
Where is it? Here. So I actually made a keychain out of this that says there is no key. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if the
Yep.
people listening to the audio can hear. It's a keychain that says there is no key. And it's meant to be a little tongue in cheek because I've learned that there is no one key to success. It's a
Mm,
combination lock. and each individual has their own unique combination. Similar to why they take your fingerprint when you get in trouble, we have a unique fingerprint. And when you realize that there are best practices, but there is not one size fits all key that works for everybody,
Mhm.
curiosity, the possibility virus.
Mhm.
What can I learn today? And my goal is to figure out my combination by talking to people that are different from me, from taking notes, by learning all the time. And then if we can figure out, you mentioned this, the soul searching, the inner work of understanding ourselves, our own combination, we can best show up for other people as well. And it's a constant evolution. So we're always learning and curious and doing the best I can to figure out my combination. So there is no key to success. It's a combination lock.
I like that. I like that a lot. Because now, I mean, we're all one spirit, but we're all unique. We all have our
Yes.
own special, I say frequency, but we have our own
Mm.
special essence of who we are in the world. So something that works for one person may not necessarily work for another person. And and that and also what worked for us before doesn't necessarily work for us anymore either. We have to
Right.
keep growing. I like that curiosity. So tell me more about the positivity virus.
Oh, I don't, I think it was Michael Bungay Stanier. Michael Bungay Stanier, he wrote the book The Coaching Habit, over a million books sold. Brilliant guy. Had him on my podcast, Real Business Connections, and I'm pretty sure I stole that term from him.
Hmm.
So he's the person to ask. But my understanding of it is, if we can spread possibility, if we can spread curiosity, if we can wonder, what if we can do this? What if it, the possibility virus is just a positive thing. Like, let's spread hope, let's spread love, let's spread ideation, let's spread collaboration. And then what could the world look like if all of us had that possibility virus within ourselves? So I just love the term. I heard it from Michael, but I think he wrote about it in his book.
Okay. Well, that's great. Actually, I've written about something very similar, and it's part of the lifestyle health habits that I teach. Because when we gratitude, right? Gratitude amplifies what's really working.
Mm,
And the human connection, there are these mirror neurons, which you may have heard of, right? They're specific neurons that we observe someone else and we start to experience it for ourselves. So if
mm,
somebody's being positive and uplifting and funny and makes you feel good being around them, has a brighter outlook, and all of a sudden you start to experience that. And the same goes the other way. And the other piece of neurobiology that's so fascinating is the reticular activating system, that part of the brain that's like
I was just thinking that.
filtering, right? It's filtering what's important, what's important. And if you're looking at the positive and possibility, the reticular activating system is going to start honing in on that and showing it to you. So there's a lot to it. And I'm just happy for you that you had your journey and you're here to share with us, because it's really, you're making a great impact. And how would you like to leave the audience today? With what pearls of wisdom would you like to share?
Mm. Well, I first want to share, we started with this. This would not have been possible without you.
Oh,
So if someone's listening and they haven't hit subscribe, possibly leave a review. You can hit 5 stars or you can write a little bit. Show some love, because this podcast is incredible and it would not be possible without Gail. So thank you. I want to just say that. And we'll just go back. I just want to have repetition. There is no key to success, it's a combination lock. Who in your life haven't you spoken to recently? Who can you reach out to? Who have you been learning from? Maybe you're reading a book. Why don't you like message them on LinkedIn or Instagram and say, hello, I read your book. Here's 3 things I learned. start making these connections, having these conversations, spreading that possibility virus we talked about, because there is no key to success. It's a combination lock. Who's going to be the team members, the ideas, the people in your life that create your combination? And if you can figure that out, you can just basically unlock anything in this world. So that's what we want to do, right?
Yes. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. That was lovely. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I hope today's episode helped you adopt more tools to implement daily. Choose change, look within, and see your inner wisdom already exists, and live your optimal health. If this inspires you, I invite you to share this on your favorite social platform, share it with a friend, or just help us spread the importance of health-conscious living. For more lifestyle health tips, check out healthconsciousliving.com, sign up for my email, and follow me at Gayle Myers MD on Instagram. Hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to give a 5-star review and leave your comments or questions. Until next week, rejoice in the health that you have.